In the 1970s, Japan was riding the crust of an economic miracle. Cities were rapidly expanding into neon-lit metropolises, defining the cutting edge of global development. With this rapid industrialization came a strict, hyper-rational mindset. The prevailing logic was that a society building the future had successfully left behind the ancient folklore, spirits, and ghosts of its past. But that rational facade shattered almost overnight. Across the country, a sudden, unexplainable panic gripped the population, completely overriding their modern sensibilities. The terror reached such a pitch that the daily routine of the nation halted. Schools were abruptly shut down, and parents refused to let their children play outside, locking them safely indoors away from an unseen threat. A society that was manufacturing the world's most advanced technology was brought to its knees, paralyzed entirely by an uncontrollable urban legend. The source of this nationwide lockdown was supposedly a single lone woman. She wandered the quietest streets, her face partially obscured by a standard white surgical mask. She didn't target adults or authorities. Her victims of choice were unsupervised children, intercepting them as they walked home from school. When she cornered a child, she wouldn't attack right away. Instead, she would stop them and ask a disarmingly simple, slightly vain question. "Am I beautiful?" Looking up into her seemingly gentle eyes, the terrified children were usually lulled into a false sense of security. Relieved, the children almost always answered yes. That single syllable of confirmation triggered the trap. Her harmless vanity functioned as the bait for a psychological sequence with absolutely no escape route. The moment the child agreed, the woman reached up her hand and slowly pulled the white surgical mask away from her face. Beneath the cotton was a gruesome sight. Her mouth had been violently sliced open, the deep cuts stretching from ear to ear. Staring down at her horrified victim, she would activate the true trap with a second question. "Am I beautiful now?" This decision tree maps the rules of her deadly game. If the child answered no in terror, she would pull out oversized shears and execute them. But if they answered yes, she would slice their mouth to match her own, leaving them to bleed. Every branch of the logic leads to the same outcome. Whether the child rebels or complies, they are trapped in a loop that ends in a death sentence. To understand exactly why she traps victims in this agonizing, unwinnable scenario, we have to look hundreds of years before the 1970s, back to the origins of the ghost herself. Long before she was a spirit haunting urban streets, she was a mortal woman. She possessed exceptional physical beauty and intense vanity, and she was married to a prominent samurai warrior. When her husband was deployed to fight in a distant war, she was left entirely alone for a long stretch of time, and she eventually entered into an affair with another man. The samurai eventually returned home and discovered the betrayal. Enraged, he decided on a brutally specific form of retribution, taking his blade and violently cleaving his wife's face in two. As she collapsed, bleeding on the floor, he stood over her and delivered a final, cruel taunt. "Are you still proud of your beauty now?" That dying moment locked her spirit into a permanent loop. The ghost of Kuchisake Onna is doomed to endlessly recreate the darkest moment of her life, forcing innocent children into the exact same paradox of vanity and violent punishment that she suffered. Returning to the panic of the 1970s, the lockdown eventually ran courses. The wave of sightings and street attacks slowly and inexplicably came to a halt. The sightings eventually ended with a strange rumor. Kuchisake Onna had simply packed up and vanished from Japan entirely, leaving no explanation behind. At its core, this legend thrives because it embodies a massive cultural collision. It forces the ancient codes of honor, shame, and brutal consequence to collide head-on with a rapidly modernizing industrial society. The panic proved that bullet trains and neon lights are a thin veneer. No amount of technological advancement can insulate a culture from its primal psychological fears of betrayal, vanity, and inescapable retribution. So, if you ever find yourself walking down a quiet street and a masked woman steps out of the shadows to ask if she looks beautiful, break her rules. Don't answer yes or no. Instead, ask her why she left Japan. If she gives you an answer, and if you survive to tell the tale, Let us know in the comments below.